I am Mike Lavin. I'm a reenactor that's attending the D-Day event, Ohio, 2011.
My name is Dustin Milner. I'm a reenactor. I'm also a high school history teacher.
My name is Janelle Gilreath, and we are at D-Day, Ohio.
I'm Chris Schwindeman, and we are in Conneaut, Ohio.
We're in Conneaut, Ohio, right on Lake Erie, and we're here for a D-Day reenactment. Some might say we're in England in 1944, June the 5th. It depends on who you ask and when you ask, yeah.
I am this year's Chief Executive Officer of D-Day Ohio Incorporated, a 501c3 that was formed to host this event, which recreates the landings at Normandy and some of the early airborne actions as a tribute to our veterans and to remember their sacrifice and service.
You know, we're doing kind of an odd thing in society, you know, dressing up like our forefathers, and so the other people that are like-minded, we kind of have a bond, you know?
This D-Day event gives us an opportunity to connect with successive generations and to give a moment of history to folks as they come and visit us at the site. And it also provides an avenue for veterans to talk about their experiences, both with their families and with the general public.
I've been doing German reenacting since 1985, so that means I've been doing it for 26 years.
And why do you do this?
I do it more as a memorial to myself and my fellow soldiers. You say, well, you're a German, and I am actually an American combat veteran, but since the early 60s I've lived in Germany for a short period with a German family who the father was a Wehrmacht surgeon and the mother was a Wehrmacht nurse.
The thing about reenacting is it gives you a little bit of insight, just a very little bit, into what the guys actually went through. So you're reading a story, you're seeing a movie, whatever it is, you can kind of understand what it's like to camp out, carry the gear, jump off of a Higgins boat, that sort of thing.
As a woman who's doing reenacting, it's not as easy, because if you're a man, it's easier for you just to have the soldier uniform and to go out there and honor the memory of your grandfather, and it's not as easy an opportunity. So this is how I go in my way about honoring my grandfather's memory and their service.
This really means a lot to me because this is a chance to actually live a small piece of history. It's also important because there are many veterans around here. You can talk to them and get a sense of what they went through.
I also just love the period of history. I love old Hollywood. I love old movies. I'm fascinated by how things were done back then, the lives people led, and how even Hollywood was just willing to go out of their way for the war effort.
I'm prior to military service, and the camaraderie you get is a hint of what we actually had in the real military, the real Marine infantry I was in. It's just, you get a hint of that with this esprit de corps we get with the guys that come out time after time, every year after year. It's just really a lot of fun.
I'm part of the 2nd Rangers, and we are going to on the Duck, and we're just a 6-man squad, and part of our job is to assault the beach and try to take the beach.
And what the veterans of all sides in all conflicts give to ensure that we still have the same rights that we enjoy today.
As a Vietnam veteran, I don't feel that I can collect stuff from my war, and I therefore have chosen to collect stuff from another war.
Our grandpa was a forward observer with Patton's army, and we knew he was in the war, and he didn't really talk about it very much, but when he did talk about it, it kind of was like, you know, we were just vibrating. Like, right, very exciting. And so, I don't know, we started off kind of, you know, he drove a Jeep in the war, and so that's kind of how it all started for us. We wanted to have a Jeep just like Pappy's.
For the most part, I think they're reenacting the battle itself. Some might be thinking about, you know, Tom Hanks and Saving Private Ryan kind of stuff on the side, but most of the people that are really into it are trying to emulate the battle the best they can and to make it look like their actual battle. We're here to reenact it, not to, you know, run around like Hollywood and try to make it look all glitzy and glammy. It's supposed to be realistic.
It really is about our veterans, and I don't want that on camera, but if I can compose myself, that's what I usually talk about, because these guys are just fantastic.
My wife sometimes doesn't understand why I do this, and I've often told her I don't think it's because you have the same shared experience as that I have, because you have not been there and done that. And it's certainly nothing you can read about in a book. You have to be there.
Here is the other side of the channel, Britain, an armed camp bristling with tanks and trucks and guns from the United States and Canada. Here is the fruition of 4 years of planning and production. Here is a glimpse of England as the Allied armies awaited D-Day. Week after week, the fleet grew in numbers. Steel ships of every description, ships expressly designed and constructed for the mission upon which soon they were to embark. Here is something of the gigantic naval armada assembled to transport the Allied armies across the English Channel. Here is something of the ingenuity of Allied engineers. Assault boats and invasion barges launched directly from the decks of the ships that brought them to England. Nothing was left to chance. Every loading operation was rehearsed and timed in advance. Every soldier knew his station. Every man knew just where he was to fit into the gigantic pattern. Daily they boarded their ships. For all they knew, they were bound for France or Belgium or wherever their commanders had decided to strike. Then on the 5th day of June, 1944, just as you see them here, a fleet of more than 4,000 ships put out from England. This was D-Day, 4th anniversary of the Battle of Dunkirk, and the Allied armies were striking back.
the Allied Expeditionary Force. You are about to embark upon the great crusade toward which we have striven these many months. The eyes of the world are upon you. The hopes and prayers of liberty-loving people everywhere march with you. In company with our brave allies and brothers in arms on other fronts, you will bring about the destruction of the German war machine, the elimination of Nazi tyranny over the oppressed peoples of Europe, and security for ourselves in a free world. Your task will not be an easy one. Your enemy is well-trained, well-equipped, and battle-hardened. He will fight savagely. But this is the year 1944. Much has happened since the Nazi triumphs of 1940-41. The United Nations have inflicted upon the Germans great defeats in open battle, man to man. Our air offensive has seriously reduced their strength in the air and their capacity to wage war on the ground. Our home fronts have given us an overwhelming superiority in weapons and munitions of war, and placed at our disposal great reserves of trained fighting men. The tide has turned. The free men of the world are marching together to victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory.
In England, General Dwight D. Eisenhower and his deputy commanders chart the liberation of a lost continent, plan when and where the mighty armies of the United Nations will strike. Today, northern France is that battleground. Into the building of their defense system, the so-called West Wall, the Nazis poured the slave labor of conquered nations. Pictures made by the Germans themselves to impress their satellites with the strength and invincibility of their fortifications. Within steel and concrete emplacements, 4 years in the making, the Germans have amassed every known weapon of defense. Whether those weapons are enough to stop the Allied onslaught will be proven in the struggle that lies ahead. Vast squadrons of bombers and transports led the way. More than 11,000 planes spearheading the attack. Paratroopers landed in Normandy, behind the coastal defenses. Landings made with timing and precision. The great fleet was underway. battled shore ready for instant action, some bearing artillery and rocket guns already opening fire. Just as in these scenes, the armies of the United Nations have made their first landings on the soil of Western Europe. Another of the great decisive battles of world history has been joined. This is the day for which free people long have waited. This is D-Day.